Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the volume of a cone, how to find the volume of a cone, the formula for it, and go over some examples. So first, it's really important to understand the formula for the volume of a cone and where it comes from. We've already learned how to find the volume of a cylinder. So if you remember, a cylinder looks like this. Not the best drawer. And a cone, if we took the cone with the same radius and put it inside of the cylinder, so the same radius, remember radius only goes from the center point out. If we took a cone with the same radius and put it inside here, it would only take up 1/3 the amount of space inside this cylinder. Only 1/3. There's 2/3 left over that it's not taking up. So that's important when understanding the volume for a cone. So on our notes it says the volume of a cone is 1/3 the volume of a cylinder. To find the volume of a cone, you multiply the volume of a cylinder by 1/3. The formula for the volume of a cone is volume equals 1/3, and then everything else is the same that we learned for a cylinder. Pi times r squared times our height. Remember, this part right here is the formula for volume of a cylinder. If we want to find the volume of a cone, we just multiply it by 1/3, because a cone only takes up 1/3 the amount of space that a cylinder does. So we're going to use this formula to find the volume of cones. Our directions say to round to the nearest hundredth. So 2 decimal places, nearest hundredth. I have a visual over here so that we understand the different parts of a cone. So the radius just goes to the center point, and the height is the height of the cone. So again, really important that we identify the radius and the height when looking at a cone so that we can plug those values into this formula and solve for the volume. So if we look at our first example, the radius is 2 inches. The height is 8 inches. So we have everything we need to plug into this formula. I'm going to write my formula out. Yes, I want you guys writing it out every time so that you can get it memorized and you know it. 1/3 pi r squared times the height. Volume equals 1/3 pi times r squared. So that's our radius squared times our height. Again, you can use your calculator for this. So we're going to do our radius squared. So 2 squared times the height gives us 32. So we have volume equals 1/3 pi times 32. Now we're going to leave pi alone and we're going to multiply 1/3 times 32. So times 1, fraction button 3, so times 1/3, hit the equal sign, and we get 10 2/3. Volume equals 10 2/3 times pi. Now I want to express this in terms of pi. It's written like this. If I want to express it as a decimal, I'm going to multiply this number by 3.14 for pi. So times 3.14, and that gives us our decimal. Remember, we need to round to the nearest hundredth. That's what our directions said, so that's 2 decimal places. So this is our hundredths place where the 9 is. We look to the neighbor to the right, 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, let it rest. So this 9 gets to stay a 9. The volume is approximately 33.49 inches cubed. Remember, when we're talking about volume, it's always going to be cubed. Inches cubed or cubic inches. All right, sliding on over to our next example. This is a cone, it's just on its side. So we need to identify the radius and the height. Our radius goes to the center point. This is 2 feet. The height is 3 feet. We are going to plug those values into our formula that we've been given, this formula right here. Volume equals 1/3 pi times the radius squared times the height. Substitute 2n for r, 3n for h. Volume equals 1/3 pi times our radius squared times the height. Volume equals 1/3 pi. 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Or you can use your calculator. If you want to use your calculator, remember this is the squared button. 2 squared times the height, which is 3. That gives us our 12. Now we're going to multiply that by 1/3. So times 1 fraction button 3 equals 4. So our volume in terms of pi is written like this when pi is still there. Now I want to write it as a decimal. So I'm going to multiply 4 by 3.14 for pi. It told me to use 3.14 for pi. So times 3.14. And then we need to round to the nearest hundredth. That's 2 decimal places. This is already 2 decimal places. So the volume is approximately 12.56 feet cubed. Okay, for this next one, pause the video, try it on your own, then check back with me. If I look at my cone, it's upside down, but I can see that my height is 16. And my radius, well, I'm not given the radius, I'm actually given the diameter. This line goes all the way across, so that means it's the diameter. If I want to find the radius, I need to divide it by 2. I need to divide that diameter by 2. So 15 divided by 2, half of 15 is 7.5. So my radius, 7.5 centimeters. Then we're going to take those values and substitute them into our formula. Volume equals 1/3 pi times the radius squared times the height. Plug those values in. I'm running out of room. Now I'm going to use my calculator. 7.5 squared times our height, which is 16, gives me 900. So I'm going to rewrite this. Then I'm going to multiply 900 by 1/3. So times 1/3, and we get 300. So the volume is approximately 300 pi. That's in terms of pi. We want to write it as a decimal. So I'm going to multiply this by 3.14. The volume is approximately 942 cubic centimeters. I'm going to box that in and we're done with that problem. Again, try this one on your own. Check back with me when you are finished. So the height of this cone is 9. I can see here my line goes all the way across. So this is giving me the diameter. I need the radius. So we need to divide our diameter by 2. This is where the most common mistake happens. So make sure you are always finding your radius. Write out the formula, then substitute those values in. So for my radius is 4 squared times the height, which is 9. Can use that calculator. And 4 squared times the height. Rewrite everything out. Now I'm going to multiply this by 1/3. So I get 48. Volume, 48 pi, and that would be feet cubed, but we don't want to just leave it like this. This is expressing it in terms of pi, but we also want to write it as a decimal. So I'm going to multiply this number times 3.14, and we need to round to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 decimal places. This is already 2 decimal places, so we don't need to do anything to it. We just write it as it is. So the volume is approximately 150.72 cubic feet. Two more problems. These are word problems. Gonna follow the same steps. Find the radius, find the height. Karen built a clay model of a volcano in the shape of a cone. Her model has a diameter of 12 inches, so we're going to underline that, and a height of 8 inches. Find the volume of the clay in her model to the nearest hundredth. So again, we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, 2 decimal places. You can draw a quick little visual. I'm a visual person. It says diameter, so I know that line's going all the way across. Diameter is 12. And the height is 8. And that's in inches for both. Okay, so my height is 8. My radius, I don't have the radius, I was given the diameter. So I need to divide the diameter by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. So the radius is 6 inches. Now we're going to take that information, plug it into our formula. Volume equals 1/3 pi times the radius squared times the height. Plug those values in. My radius is 6 and the height is 8. Use your calculator to solve for the rest. 6 squared times the height, which is 8, gives us 288. Gonna multiply that by 1/3, so times 1/3 gives us 96. I don't want to just stop there. I want to write it as a decimal, so I'm going to multiply 96 times 3.14 for pi. And we need to round to the nearest tenth, so if I round this number to the nearest tenth, it's already 2 decimal places. I don't need to do anything to it, so I leave it as it is. Volume equals, or is approximately 301.44. And our units is inches cubed, or cubic inches. Last problem, go ahead and pause the video, try it on your own, check back with me. A paper cup in the shape of a cone has a diameter of 6 centimeters and is 7 centimeters high. How much water can the paper cup hold? Find the volume of the paper cup to the nearest hundredth. So again, if you need to, draw that visual. It said diameter, so my line's going all the way across. That's 6. centimeters. And the height of my cone is 7 centimeters. So the height is 7. And the radius, so radius is half of our diameter. So I need to divide this number by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my radius is 3 centimeters. Plug those values into the formula and solve. Volume equals 1/3 times pi r squared, so the radius is 3 squared, times the height, which is 7. Use your calculator to finish it up. 3 squared times 7 for the height, that's 63. We can rewrite this out, or we can just multiply by 1/3 now. I'm going to multiply by 1/3 now, times 1/3. So that gives me 21. So volume equals 21 pi. Now I want to write this as a decimal. 21 times 3.14. If I look at that number, it's already 2 decimal places, so I don't need to round it any further. The volume of this cone is approximately 65.94. Our units is centimeters cubed, because we're talking about volume. Again, guys, remember in math, we always talk about what's the most common mistake? Where could I possibly make a mistake at? And the number one spot here is most definitely when we are plugging in our radius or figuring out what our radius is. Remember, radius is half the diameter. So you really need to pay attention. What did the visual give me, or what did our word problem give me? It gave me the diameter. I need to divide that by 2. Up here in this example, it gives you the radius. Radius just goes halfway to the middle and stops. Okay, so make sure you're being very careful with that. This is our formula for the volume of a cone. It's 1/3 pi r squared times the height. Have a good day. I will talk to you guys again soon. I miss you all. Bye.